The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Tips for Moving from Dynamics AX 2012 to Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations. My name is Josh Richards. I'm the Marketing Director at Merritt Solutions, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Bob Bell. And together we have a pretty full agenda for the next 45 to 60 minutes. To start us off, I plan on taking just a couple of minutes to briefly introduce Merritt Solutions and help frame our discussion today. And then Bob will pick up for the remainder of the session and cover the rest of the topics you see on the left-hand side of the screen. I do want to point out that this session is being recorded, and the recording will be provided to all attendees following the event. If time permits, we will also open the floor for some Q&A at the end of the session. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A panel on your screen to submit those questions electronically, and then we'll try to address all of those questions following our content today if time permits. So who are we? I know there's a lot going on the screen right now, but really at our core, Merritt Solutions is a consulting firm headquartered in Chicago with 5 offices throughout the US and Europe. Our strategy is to be deep and not wide, so we focus 100% on the Microsoft business platform. And I think we're really unique right now in terms of Microsoft consulting organizations, as our expertise really reaches across the entire platform, from those traditional ERP and CRM apps all the way to the newer digital capabilities such as mobile apps, IoT, machine learning, things of that nature. So we're capable of being your single source provider of all your digital technology needs, and that's just not something we've seen many other organizations capable of promising today. But what I think is likely most important to our clients, and perhaps to those of you on the call today, are our client satisfaction scores. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is a trailing representation of the previous 17 quarters of client satisfaction scores, where you can notice that our clients consistently rate us above a 4 out of 5. Again, we think this is extremely rare in a space where Gartner says 55 to 75% of projects fail to achieve their desired objectives. So we're really proud of those scores, and we try to do whatever we can to achieve successful outcomes for all of our clients. Quickly moving through this, when we take a second to explore our services team breakdown, you can see that our expertise truly does go beyond the ERP space. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see our experience within the Dynamics 365 and formerly AX ERP space. We do have our own custom solutions for manufacturing and life sciences organizations. We have a rapid deployment offering that Bob will discuss later in the webinar. We have apps that have passed the rigorous Certified for Microsoft Dynamics testing procedures, and we have apps that are listed on AppSource. If you move to the middle of the screen, you can see our experience with mobile and cloud technologies. For instance, we deployed one of the first AX on Azure clients. We had one of the largest Xamarin mobile app deployments, and this was really prior to Microsoft acquiring Xamarin. And we developed the very first Microsoft Dynamics Windows 8 application. So I guess the key there is we've been doing mobile and cloud projects long before Microsoft took Dynamics 365 to the cloud. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see our support team statistics. We do provide ongoing support and optimization services for our clients through our Merritt Care program. And we have a number of different levels or options for support depending on each individual client's needs. All right, we're on to my last slide before handing controls over to Bob. For anyone who's seen a previous Dynamics 365 presentation, you've likely seen this infinity slide before that represents the end-to-end platform offering from Microsoft, from their core Dynamics 365 apps in the middle of the screen to the surrounding technologies on the outside, like Power Apps, Azure IoT, Flow, Power BI, and more. We included this slide in here really to visualize everything I discussed in the last couple of slides and to showcase that Merritt Solutions can help organizations leverage the broad capabilities of the entire platform. And these functional capabilities are a big driving force, a reason for companies using AX 2012 to make that move to Dynamics 365. It really opens your company up to a wide array of digital capabilities that can streamline processes, improve intelligence, or even open new revenue streams. I guess outside of these functional capabilities, there are a number of other reasons why companies should consider making the move. And now I'll hand controls over to Bob and let him lead the discussion from here on out. Bob, the floor is yours.
Hey, Josh, thanks a bunch. Appreciate it. Hey, I'd like to spend a little bit of time here in this next section talking about some other reasons why it might be a good time to think about upgrading to D365. If you're on AX 2012 and you're at least on R2 or R3, you certainly have, a decent amount of runway left before Microsoft pulls support. I feel bad for our brethren who are on AX 2009. We just about 2 weeks ago did this similar webinar focused on folks who are currently on 2009, and Microsoft stopped mainline support for that product on April 10th of this year. If you're on RTM AX 2012, I believe that that support will stop sometime in October. I have another slide here that has those details. But again, I wanted to spend a little bit of time, talking about some of the other reasons why D365 makes sense, besides sort of the functionality and the look and feel and sort of the new, HTML web-based only. Although, strong applause for the fact that it's HTML based and terminal servers get to be deprecated in your infrastructure. But one of the things to think about is how well prepared are you from a business continuity or disaster recovery perspective. I'll talk a bit about that. Do you have some integration strategies you've started to think about? Josh talked about IoT, the Internet of Things. It's kind of funny. I look at my own home network, and I've got more connected devices than computers on my home network. I just got a message the other day saying that my Yamaha receiver needs a firmware upgrade. It's kind of amazing. We'll talk briefly in this section about D365 for talent, and I'll touch on some of the discounts that Microsoft currently has in place if you're looking to move forward with D365. So Josh, if you can hit that next slide, we've got this global view of the sort of the Azure footprint for Microsoft, which, boy, I'm sure this slide's already out of date. I know it's several months old. I think I picked this one up near the beginning of the year. They just continue to invest heavily in the infrastructure to support, the Azure cloud. And again, one of the things to think about is the fact that, you don't have to worry about business continuity, or you don't have to worry about disaster recovery in this new world model. It's taken care of for you. You typically pick your primary server location, geographic location, and you can basically tell Microsoft, I'd like my secondary location to be in the western part of the U.S. because I'm in the eastern part of the U.S. So again, heaven forbid we would be struck by a hurricane or disaster here on the East Coast. That data center on the West Coast would most likely be unaffected. If you have a failed drive, and I'm sure everybody's had that happen, basically don't miss a heartbeat and just continue to run, which is just great. So again, if the point of this is Microsoft's making a significant investment in the infrastructure, support this, so you don't have to. Let's skip to the next slide there, Josh. I think some more of the, what's in there and what's included. We just talked about the infrastructure that is, it's also high availability. So not only, is it disaster recovery, but like I talked about, business continuity or a failed drive, quickly they'll bring your environment back up. Disaster recovery, I think this number that they've got in this slide is low. I spent about 6 months working for a company here on the East Coast, a manufacturer, and believe it or not, their annual spend for a disaster recovery site was over $500,000. Things like having the second and third environment, the sandbox environment, dev, test, and production, again, sort of all included in the base price of D365. Proactive monitoring, Microsoft really wants this to be extremely successful. They're looking at response time and monitoring your environment all the time. And if it needs more memory, if it needs more temp DB, they take care of all that, right? I think the other nice thing is all these additional usage rights for software that's included in the Azure platform. BI in this slide is only one of those things. Josh mentioned IoT and machine learning. And in fact, I'll talk a little bit more about what you get with the Azure Cloud Platform with some of the IoT solutions that are available, and how we're actually leveraging those solutions for one of our clients. Let's flip the screen there, Josh. So again, I think there's some integration strategies to consider as you move forward. Being able to reduce third-party apps. Again, there's a lot more and newer functionality in D365. Looking at using the right tool for the right job and aligning capability and speed and requirements and size. Again, in this environment, you can turn on and turn off, instances of your D365. So maybe your dev or your test environment doesn't need to be on all the time, thus saving you money. Again, I think you want to take a look at how can I take advantage of some of these new capabilities, whether it's IoT, whether it's D365 for talent, and some of the new functionalities. Do I need to be in the cloud completely, or do I want to take a look at the partial on-premise opportunity that Microsoft has out there as well? And then there's a number of partner integration templates, the logic apps, the flow power apps, and the common data service. So I think last but not least, an integration strategy is also to consider is, can I reduce modifications or enhancements? We had a client that we were able to take 60 significant enhancements and reduce that to 30 because there was a number of new functionality that took the place of a lot of the enhancements that they had in the past. So let's talk a little bit about some of the IoT things that are out there. I mean, this is an exciting technology that's offered as part of the Azure platform that you'll have access to. Years ago, manufacturing companies had to look at solutions that were called manufacturing execution systems. You would buy something from a company like Wonderware, or the hardware manufacturer that manufactured your PLCs, your process logic controllers, maybe offered solutions. These projects almost always became phase 2 or phase 3 from a priority perspective, and then almost always never happened. And what Microsoft has in these solutions that they've supplied with the Azure platform are some really pretty decent tools to give you that capability to sort of leverage the Internet of Things. We have our own intellectual property for the life sciences industry, and we've actually built a small IoT piece of software into that solution, and that is to check temperature and humidity in clean rooms for pharmaceutical firms. Josh, you want to flip to that next one? So here's the just a little bit of a rundown on the 3 solutions that are available. The Microsoft IoT Central is really a fully managed software as a service solution, and really is a good tool to use if you want to get started quickly, or for maybe businesses that don't necessarily have a lot of IoT devices to connect up to. And so you can quickly, reap the benefits using this platform. The Azure IoT Suite is more of a platform as a service, more customizable. It's really probably for companies that would have a large number of IoT devices and need to connect up a bunch of PLCs. The last solution, so the Azure IoT Edge solution, is really a bit of an offline IoT solution where the frequency of updates maybe not as critical, and you just need sort of a limited connectivity. A good example here might be measuring rainfall or grabbing temperature once a day in a location and updating your system. I'll talk a little bit about on the next slide a case study. So we've got a food and beverage client of ours, and they have decided to pursue an IoT project as part of their phase 1 implementation. It's not phase 2 or phase 3. We're helping them by using the Microsoft IoT Central set of tools that I talked about earlier, and we are connecting to a scale to capture the catch weight or the variable weight of product, like meat or cheese. That's really what catch weight is. And capturing that information and then storing it in D365 for each case of product. It used to take the customer anywhere from 60 to 90 seconds per case for an operator to key in that weight after reading the scale with the IoT device and the IoT Central on the Azure platform. They're now able to capture that information literally almost real time. It takes about 3 seconds as the cases pass over the sort of in line with the conveyor, pass over the scale and grab that information. When you talk about 60 to 90 seconds down to 3 seconds, you're talking thousands of cases of product. This is obviously a significant time savings, and it's going really well. So let's talk a little bit about D365 for talent. You know, I think this has been a functional area in AX that certainly wasn't always very robust. That's really not the case anymore. Microsoft, with the D365 for talent application, is trying to cover that whole hire to retire business process. They've done some pretty cool things that you would expect out of sort of best of breed human capital management solutions, from an integration to LinkedIn for onboarding, you know, things like open enrollment. It now has employee and manager self-service, and it's, you know, a pretty robust solution. I would recommend highly taking a look at this before you start looking at any kind of separate, you know, best of breed solutions like Ultra Pro or Workforce or something like that. I would definitely take a look at the D365 for talent. The nice thing is that Microsoft has some pretty robust websites to go look at this stuff at, and go run some YouTube videos and give you a better sense of the functionality that's available. All right, so I said we would talk a little bit about the pricing. You know, Microsoft is offering up to about a 40% discount if you look at the enterprise user license level. This is certainly, and Josh plans on supplying the slides from this deck. You know, this is sort of a breakdown at the different levels between the current licensing model, CALs, and the D365 license. I mean, your actual price may vary. This is sort of the legalese, right? And we can help you with that process, you know, should you require assistance in sort of, you know, managing and navigating the licensing model from Microsoft. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our methodology and approach for upgrading to D365. So everybody always wants to know, how long is it going to take? You know, what are there any offers we can benefit from? We talked a bit about that on the pricing and the licensing discount. What is the upgrade process like? So we have really two options available, and we'll drill into both of these. The first option, we'll just kind of go through the sort of the full what I would call a full enterprise upgrade, and you're typically looking at that. You know, could take up to 9 months, depending on what you need to upgrade, integrations and other things that need to be done. But we have an opportunity and a way for you to expedite that process with our rapid 365 methodology, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But you know, we believe that's pretty fast and cost effective, and whether you choose that route or you choose sort of our standard route, we have some tools that can help you achieve this outcome. So when you take a look at an upgrade, I mean, it's just like any other project, right? You really should have, you know, what I call a roadmap or a methodology, right? You need to go through a certain set of steps, identifying the scope and approach to the project, you know, doing some design and analysis work. There's certainly going to be some execution work, sort of the technical work that needs to get done in an upgrade. There's going to be some things to do from a deployment perspective and testing and training. And then obviously you would, you know, eventually get into sort of what we would call a maintenance mode. And we have a solution, obviously, that we call Merritt Care. That's our support. So If you look at the first phase of any project, really, this is what I would call, scope and approach, right? What is it we need to evaluate, or what is it we need to identify to be moved over, right? Which parts of the system, what's been implemented, what needs to move over to D365. Need to take a look at the licensing. The licensing is certainly a bit different. It's not completely different, but there certainly is some differences in it. Obviously, a subscription model. You want to work on a budget and timeline, right? You need to have training plans. You need to have testing plans. You need to work through a conversion strategy. And we'll talk a little bit later on here about some of the tools that Microsoft provides. You certainly, just like any other project, you need to have project governance, status reporting, and all the things involved in making sure that you're sort of making sure the project's on time and on budget. So as we move to this next slide, I did say that there's sort of a fork in the road, so to speak, here. You could take the path of taking a look at our Rapid 365 approach. It's a best practices pre-configured solution. We've taken, I believe it's about 180 of the task guides, and we've done the business process maps in LCS that are pre-configured for you as well. This would be for someone who is, pretty plain vanilla and wants to get up quickly on D365. I've actually got a client who's looking at upgrading, and they are their financial system is not on AX, it's on a brand X, and their manufacturing system is actually on an AX 2009 instance. This will work perfect for them because we can get them quickly off that brand X financial system, and then in phase 2 bring over their AX 2009 manufacturing solution, and that's most likely the approach we'll take. The other sort of, if Rapid 365 was the left fork, you see a BTM or business transformation mapping, sort of the first phase of any project where you're going to really sit down and figure out the gaps and the requirements and the design, go through a more typical implementation process, right? You may have unique processes. You may feel that you're differentiated not only by what you make, but how you make it. So you want to take those processes and bring those forward into the new D365 process. But obviously, you're going to need to do some fit gap. You're going to need to do some customization analysis. You'll need to take a look at the ISV solutions that you might have deployed as well. Let's go on to the next slide, Josh. So this is really, you can think about this as the technical part of the upgrade, right? Things like data cleansing and data retention and historical data and the whole data migration strategy. What are we going to do there? We have some unique data migration templates, as well as there are some tools to take you from AX 2012 to D365 that we'll talk about a little bit later on, as I mentioned. We can take the lead in working with your ISVs to get those integrations, tested and completed. Certainly, security is a different model in D365, so there'll be some work to do there. And then you've got the BI and reporting, right? So you're going to move off of potentially you may have deployed some cubes or a third-party BI tool. You'll need to look at how do I move that stuff to Power BI, or how do I move that particular ISV to this new environment. So this next phase 4, so is really where you're going to be preparing the organization and the users to get ready for D365. You're going to do some what I would really call quality assurance testing. Does the system do what I expected it would do? You probably did that in your first implementation. You're certainly going to do some user acceptance testing, so getting more engagement from and buy-in from the users. You'll need to do some training, step-by-step instructions, and again, these task guides in the new D365 model are going to help with that. you'll need to go through a go live readiness, and then obviously ultimately the go live. Once you're live, obviously we can support you with our Merritt Care offering. Again, that's sort of our name for our ongoing support. You know, we like to think that we extend your team, that we don't replace your team, and that we can be you know, the experts that you can call on when maybe your team of super users can't get to the answer for your user community. Oftentimes our support team has been intimately involved in the implementation or intimately involved in the upgrade, and then that helps. You know, we understand sort of your unique business requirements because of that involvement. I think we'll just flip to this next slide. So this is kind of a little bit of and I did say there was a slide that has the date. So there's that date for if you happen to have gone live on the RTM solution, support for that, as well as the support, I guess, for R2 is the same date. They're both October 9th, 2018. So RTM and R2, I guess I had missed that R2 is also October 9th, 2018. You know, you might want to start thinking about that upgrade. And then again, this is a bit of a recap. You know, everything in sort of under one roof. The data intelligence, the BI solution is really quite good. It's gotten to be more of an end user tool. You know, you've got this whole concept of going to a consumption model and only using what you need, maybe turning off certain instances of your Azure instances of D365 when they're not in use. And I really think there's some, you know, significant cost savings. You know, if you really take a look at, you know, what kind of disaster recovery or business continuity you have in place for the business, you know, and oftentimes companies don't have anything. This really sort of you know, gives you that capability. So I think what we wanted to do today also was make an offer to everyone who had a chance to join us. And we are offering a 2-day upgrade assessment. You know, obviously, to be able to do that assessment, we need access to your key users and to your IT organization. We'd love to be able to look at some current documentation, you know, standard procedures you might have in place. If by chance you would still have, you know, project artifacts from the original project, that would certainly be helpful in this assessment. It's also obviously, you know, we need to understand where you are within your current enhancement support agreement. If you are not current, those licensing options or discounts are not available. That would only go to make sense, right? And then sort of understanding the business drivers. Obviously, you know, in the case of AX 2009, you know, expiring support is certainly a driver for that. If Josh, you would flip to the next slide, we could talk a little bit about, you know, the functional assessment, what we'll be doing there. You know, obviously a bit of that is, you know, if we don't know you and you're not a customer of ours, we certainly need to better understand sort of your business and what's, you know, what you do for a living, right? What's the history of the AX system? You know, who are the owners of the system? What's the organization structure look like? You know, what work streams are you thinking about, you know, moving forward with? What major customizations or integrations are there? You know, what are some of your most important reports? What processes maybe exist outside the system? Do you have any compliance issues? Are you a global company? Do we need to, you know, are there instances that you may be running? You know, we certainly have a number of clients who are running divisions outside of the US, and there's certainly localization issues there. What data retention requirements exist? Let's hit day 2 there real quick, Josh. And so we'll then sit down and kind of summarize the collected information, talk about licensing and pricing, some assumptions and recommendations and approach. And so we'll give you you know, really at least a quick idea of what it might take to get you moved to the D365 platform. We'll also let you know if we think it makes sense for you as a potential candidate for the Rapid 365. for that sort of accelerated approach to getting you moved over to D365. So that'd be a good time to talk about our rapid approach. I'm just going to grab a quick drink of water. And so again, the reason that we've put this together is to sort of make it a predictable, automated, proactive result. We think that our D365 solution, or our rapid 365 solution, is pretty effective. We've done it now a few times and have some pretty good results. You want to flip to that next slide, Josh? So what is it? I started to talk a little bit about this earlier on, but it is pre-built, pre-tested configuration. We've taken a number of things and created some templates that obviously reflect our years of being in this space. We've been doing dynamics since it's really been a product and been available, and that's our only focus. We've got the business process model library with a bunch of pre-built processes. And so what we'll end up doing is we will review those processes in a number of workshops, which I'll show you in a couple slides here, and basically, get your user community's feedback as to whether or not these pre-built models, task guides, and business process models are something you can live with. The task guides, again, are also pre-built. If you haven't seen a demo of D365, it'd be good to take a quick peek at one. The task guides is sort of like the old task recorder on steroids. It literally guides you through the screens, takes the cursor and points to the fields and explains what you need to enter in each one of the fields. Another use, as you start to think about the way these task guides work, it's really sort of almost an automated testing tool. You can use this to repeat your tests over and over again, to be able to do regression testing, to be able to test things in the future where you might add functionality and need to retest whether or not something else, you might have broken something else. It's a good way to do that. And then the methodology is somewhat streamlined, and what I mean by that is I'll literally tell you in this next slide here. So if you flip to the next slide, Josh. A traditional implementation, you've got sort of that business transformation mapping, solution identification phase on the front end. You're going to do some design work. You're then going to take that design and configure or make it real in the software. You're then going to go through a deployment phase, again, which is a lot of your testing and your training, and then you're going to move to operation. So you have really 5 distinct phases in a typical methodology. What we've done is we've taken that design, configuration, and deployment phase and sort of squished it all into a single phase called execution, utilizing our Rapid 365 methodology. So you can see in our Rapid 365 timeline, we've got a startup phase, we've got an execution phase, and we've got an operation phase. So instead of 5 phases, we're down to 3 phases. Certainly, you still need project management, you still need change and transition management, and you still need that sort of validation phase, that runs underneath the whole, both methodologies. So why don't you flip to that next slide. So what do you get? This is sort of, again, for Rapid 365, we mostly have the financials completed. We actually just completed project management and accounting. So we've just added that to our to the solution, and we are in the process of putting sort of a manufacturing light into the model as well. So again, Josh will be sending these slides. What we've done is we can sort of pick and choose if there are other parts of the system you need to implement in sort of that rapid model. We've got the ability to pick and choose and sort of add those. They would be additive to the total cost, and they would be additive to the scope, and obviously they would add time to the project, right? I can give you good, fast, and cheap. I can give you 2 out of 3, right? So everybody knows that. All right, look. So here's that phase called execution, where I said we're going to take those 3 phases of design and execution, or design, configuration, and deployment. And then we take all three of those, move those to execution. How do we do that? We have these workshops. So we have a process-based workshop. Obviously, before that, we do some data migration prep. We have a data-focused workshop where we'll complete the whole concept of how we're going to get the data moved over. And then we have another workshop focused on security. So the real key is, will everything work for you in sort of this native, as you see it, out of the box environment, and we'll do that all in these workshops. And then obviously, we'll move over to the operation phase. What does a project plan look like? Here's a quick little sample plan. This happens to be from one of our previous Rapid 365 implementations. We've changed the names to protect the innocent, but you can sort of get the sense for what's going on and what's happening in that time frame. Thanks, Josh. Okay, so I think I'm going to move into a little bit around the details that are available from Microsoft for moving to AX 2012, some of the tools, right, that are available. And one of the other things Josh will do when he sends the link to the recording for today's webinar and the deck, he will also add a reference to a more detailed webinar that we've done in the past around AX 2012 that goes into a lot more detail around some of these tools that Microsoft has created to help you move AX 2012 to D365. But if you look at this from a high-level overview, there are certain things you'll end up doing to your existing environment. There is a code upgrade tool. Unlike the AX 2009 upgrade tools, there is no code upgrade tool for that in that path. And there is also a data upgrade tool. There is a data upgrade tool for AX 2009 as well, but there also is a data upgrade tool here for AX 2012. You typically, obviously, are going to need to do testing, and then you'll move into obviously production cutover. Again, I talked earlier about the task guides, but those task guides can help with that testing. The data upgrade, there are some scripts that need to be run against your existing AX 2012 database. There are certain conditions that just won't convert the way they've built the conversion tools. Things like users and schemas that might be, have some weird pointers or something, or any references to temp DBs. A lot of that stuff just needs to be sort of flushed out of the system, and then you can export the database over to Azure SQL. And once it's over there, you get a chance to run another script to update it again, which then recreates the users and sets various SQL parameters. Again, there's another tool then you'll have to run to do the database upgrade and create this deployable package that becomes a shared asset in LCS. So there's a number of sort of preparation things that need to happen from a data perspective. And there's a couple other things I'll talk about here in the upgrade analyzer. Things like number sequence gaps, batch jobs that maybe finished in error, database log files that are low on space. I mean, they're just things that have to get cleaned up that the conversion tool just can't take care of, and can't move the data over if those conditions exist. So that's really what this sort of analyzer is doing over here on LCS. Go ahead, Josh. Hit the next one as well. Now, this particular one was actually showing. So this was before the 7.4 release, and when we ran this, the alerts happened to be a deprecated feature, for example. But it's alerts. If you haven't heard our backend, that's another good point. I might have made this point farther down in one of my other slides, but I think it's really valuable that Microsoft now publishes for D365, they published the roadmap. I don't remember the URL off the top of my head. I'll give that to Josh and make sure we put that into the email we send around. Some of you may already know it and have looked at it, but it's certainly really helpful. And I would suggest that as you go through your upgrade process, that you continually check in on that. It's quarterly. They'll typically, I think the last one was spring of 2018. What was in this, in the spring release, and they've done a pretty good job now of letting you know sort of what the new functionality is that's going to be in the next release, which is kind of fantastic. Hats off to Microsoft on that one. Josh, let's go to the next one. So then obviously after the data it gets upgraded, you need to look at dealing with the code. There is a tool that'll go in and take a look at what it's going to take to upgrade the code. It provides a list of conflicts that need to be resolved, and really this ends up being a sort of a basis for estimating the cost of the upgrade. Again, my big thing is I would first look at this from a functional perspective before you go through this technical process, because why not figure out that I can use some of the new functionality in the solution and not have to even upgrade some of the enhancements that I've built. So I would look at it first from a functional perspective and then start using the technical tools. Okay, and this is more so this is this is just a message down the bottom that said that a particular class. So after running the tool to look at the code upgrade, it says a class has been deprecated, it requires re-implementation. So if you happen to be calling a class that Microsoft had created and they decided to deprecate it, yeah, you're going to be in trouble there, right? So, but it lets you know that, right? So let's go to that next slide. Josh, I think this is the last slide in the AX 2012 tips and tricks. Again, this pre-upgrade checklist, it's going to really, validate your baseline version of 2012 and make sure it can be upgraded. It's going to, basically prepare the metadata and the model to move between your AX 2012 environment and your D365 environment. It also does the same thing, sort of preparing the security role metadata to figure out how that's going to get moved over. And there's also a setup for user mapping. So it opens a form where you can enter the mapping for existing AX 2012 users to the equivalent Azure AD users. And it imports those from a CSV file. But again, if you want more details on sort of this, what the tools look like, what happens, how they work, what some of the results can be, we'll provide that link to you to the more detailed webinar where one of our services folks actually spent some time walking through all these tools for AX 2012. My last slide here is just to sort of, I guess, a bit of an advertisement to talk a little bit about Merritt Support. We have the capability to obviously support your D365 instance. We can provide, managed services around Azure and around anything that you might have deployed around Azure. We can support applications, as Josh talked about. We've built a number of mobile apps for our customers, as well as we're working on IoT and just custom apps if need be. And we could also provide, what I would call advisory or management consulting services to help you with things like performance and taking a look at, maybe some of your business processes and helping you to business process re-engineer those processes. So I'm sort of at the end there, Josh. I'm going to turn it back to you. I think we're right around the quarter of the hour.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate your time and insight. Right now, I'm monitoring the questions and answers section. I don't see any questions right now. We can hang tight here for a couple more seconds and see if anything pops in. Otherwise, I guess I'll let everyone know while that's happening. I will send the recording out after this with some of the links that Bob was discussing earlier. If you have any questions that come to mind that you didn't want to ask here, feel free to shoot those over, and either I or Bob can answer them, or we can pass them on to someone within our team that can. Still not seeing any questions come through, so it looks like we can give everyone about 15 minutes of their day back. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and have a great day.